navigating regulatory changes.
They have already done a great job of kind of prioritizing guidance.
Using data analytics to help inform personalization.
That's the type of data that I think our plan sponsors, our HR professionals are more interested in, is like getting that more granular look at how their plan is running and how they can make it run even better.
And legislative advocacy.
How do we ensure that more Americans have access to a retirement plan?
All this and more on today's episode of The Wave Strength.
Welcome to The Wave Strength. Innovative solutions for a secure retirement. Presented by Pacific Life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wave Strength podcast series. I'm your host, Jim Breen, Head of Marketing with Pacific Life's institutional team. We are joined here today in the studio live with Will Hansen. Will is the Chief Government Affairs Officer for the American Retirement Association. Will, I want to thank you for once again joining us in the studio to have another conversation.
No, thanks for having me back again.
Yeah, it's been great. We've already had some fantastic discussions. One of which was with our head of the Institutional Retirement Solutions Group, Karen Neely, just a moment ago. A great one on education and the plan sponsor. We've talked about the mindset of the plan sponsor. I want to encourage our audience to head over to YouTube, Audible, and Spotify, hit like and subscribe, and also search for those episodes I just mentioned. And when you like and you subscribe, you can stay current as new content becomes available. But let's jump into the topic at hand for today's episode, which is discussing the regulatory landscape for the plan sponsor, which it sounds heavy. I mean, that sounds, there's a lot there. We have a good amount of content to go through here, Will. But before we began the episode, we were chatting, and you asked me. You said, Jim, what is it that we can maybe start off with? What can I answer? And something that I would love to ask you, Will, is maybe you can help our viewers understand why it is important that you are there in Washington, in your role, making a difference, and what is it that you're there doing to support these plan sponsors and to be an advocate for retirement wellness?
Yeah, every industry needs an advocate. And every industry in DC has representation. And so I just happen to utilize my background as a recovering Hill staffer and a recovering HR professional to become that advocate in Washington, D.C., along with our team at the American Retirement Association. And our mission is to ensure that every working American has access to a workplace retirement savings plan. You are 12 times more likely to save for retirement if you have access to a retirement plan at work. So first and foremost is we want to make sure people have access to that retirement plan at work. And then second, we want to improve upon the system that's already in place. Retirement policy is one of the very few bipartisan policy areas in Washington, D.C. We've had two major bills passed, Secure 1.0 and Secure 2.0 in the past handful of years, and they've been done in a bipartisan manner. So that's from my perspective, it's enjoyable for me to be able to work with both parties as well as independents to get just smart retirement policy across the finish line, and that's what we do at the American Retirement Association.
Well, thank you for all that you do. It's important work, and as you mentioned, one of the few bipartisan endeavors there on the Hill. So I'm sure you have a lot of interesting stories, and
can't talk about it.
Yeah, you can't talk about.
Yeah.
Can't talk about it. But that's good. In knowing that, kind of setting the stage for what we're going to discuss today, I'd like to talk a little bit about navigating some of these regulatory changes. You talked a little bit about Secure 1 and 2. Maybe you can provide a quick overview of the current landscape as it pertains to regulatory engagement and any kind of new regulatory advancements we may see in the future.
Yeah. So right now we are 100% focused really on Secure 2.0. So now that the law has passed, it has been delegated to the regulatory agencies, mainly the Department of Labor or the Treasury Department and the Internal Revenue Service, to then issue guidance on the 92 provisions that were in Secure 2.0. They have already done a great job of kind of prioritizing guidance, getting out the guidance that is needed right away or sooner than later compared to some of the other provisions. And so that's what we've seen really over the past few months. From the plan sponsor angle, I think what folks, if you're listening in, you're an HR professional, you're overseeing your plan. One thing to keep in mind is that all of the provisions, really except for one or two, were optional. So there's nothing that you need to do right now, unless you're getting pressure or you think that one of those provisions would just be really cool to implement in your 401k plan. So that is what we're waiting for right now, is guidance from Treasury or Labor to help implement some of those more optional provisions that are out there. The primary, not optional, but mandatory provision in there is the provision that your catch-up contributions need to be in Roth, not pre-tax, if you make over a certain dollar threshold per year. That is been delayed. It's not effective again for another year or so, but there still is some guidance that I think we're looking for so that the industry can properly implement that specific provision.
Interesting. In talking a little bit about how one can be compliant, let's talk about best practices for compliance. Maybe there are some specific strategies, that you can talk about how one could stay compliant. Education, a lot of the resources that PSEA and ARA have available, I'm sure would be a benefit as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. First is education, obviously. Educate yourselves, first off, as we've talked about in some prior episodes, just on the basics of your 401k plan. So the certified plan sponsor professional credential that we've talked about, one way to learn the basics. But then, yes, how do you stay on top of, oncoming or regulations that are coming out, or new laws even? And that is, first, I can be biased and say through our association. So whether it's Plan Sponsor Council of America, that I'm also executive director of, or NAPA, the National Association of Plan Advisors, or any one of the other great associations that are out there in the retirement space, are pushing out materials to help you better understand, these regulatory changes, these legal changes, or these legislative changes. But beyond that, I think most of the great companies that are out there, whether it's your consultants, your advisors, your record keepers, or others in the retirement sphere, look to them. If you're a plan sponsor, if you're an HR professional, if you're a financial advisor, use other resources that you have out there, not only the associations, but others, and tap into those. There's tons of free stuff out there. There's great webinars, content, magazines for you to just kind of stay up to speed on a lot of this new guidance.
Yeah, a lot of great resources in the episode that we recorded earlier with Karen Neely. We talked somewhat about those resources. You did mention a couple websites. Also, if you wouldn't mind mentioning the PSEA website, just for folks who may be interested in learning more about those resources on the site.
Yeah, psca.org. So Plan Sponsor Council of America. Definitely check it out. You can just go to the education tab and learn more about some of the services that we provide, most of which are complimentary to our members. And you become a member by getting the credential, the Certified Plan Sponsor Professional Credential. So definitely check out psca.org to learn more about how you can go through that complimentary, fiduciary education that we provide.
And you talked about the certificate program, and there's other resources as well, including the data, the long-standing data that I think is over 50 years old. That research platform that you have. Yeah. Perhaps you can share a little bit about that and the benefits of that survey.
Yeah, so we have our annual survey. The one that's going to be released actually later this year will be the 67th edition of that survey. Longer, or I guess older than 401k plans, but mainly focused on defined contribution type plans. So if you're a plan sponsor, if you're in HR and you complete the survey, unfortunately it is closed at this time for this year. But next year, if you complete it, you get a free copy. So free copy, 200 tables. So tons of information so that when you're talking to the C-suite, you're in your investment committee meeting and someone asks a question, about comparing yourself to your peers, your competitors, you probably have the answer for it in that book. But also if you're interested in HSAs, non-qualified plans, or if you have a 403B plan, not a 401k, we have those annual surveys too. But one resource that is really important that's actually you can access even if you're not a member is we do a question of the week. So it's one question, simple answer, yes, no, maybe it's multiple choice. And it's really checking in on the pulse of the plan sponsors on a variety of topics. And you can look at it and see, and it's broken up by topic on, where are your peers, your friends in HR thinking about XYZ provision that's in Secure 2.0, or where are your peers on lifetime income products. You can go to our website, psca.org, find that question of the week tab, and just learn more about what plan sponsors are thinking.
That's great. And, we're talking a little bit about technology and how you're utilizing your web platforms to promote the survey. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about technology and the role of technology in plan administration. Whether it's plan administration, emerging technologies, and utilizing those in the administration side of things, or even just like from an educational standpoint. I mean, before the show, we were talking a little bit about technology implementation as it pertains to how we communicate this actual broadcast. But maybe your thoughts, Will, about how these new technologies are really revolutionizing the landscape of retirement solutions.
I mean, I will totally be honest and say I use an AI platform a lot to educate myself or to just make my job a little bit easier. But
You're among friends.
Or among friends.
You're among friends.
Well, everyone should just admit that you've used it in some form or fashion.
My good friend ChatGPT.
Yeah. Exactly. So but it is education. I am sometimes asking what you just said. A specific question to educate myself or to more quickly synthesize some sort of topic. And so I think, just because of AI, generically, we are seeing a lot of advancements in the retirement space. So I do think down the road, plan sponsors are going to need to, understand, first and foremost, the basics of AI. We had a great general session conference at PSCA National this year, a few months ago, that was just on AI. And it was more of a, let's take a step back and just understand what is AI. But then from a plan sponsor, what do I need to be concerned about? And how do I protect the company? How do I protect my employees? Or just how do I use it to, more effectively educate my employees? And so I think we're at the very early stages now.
Yes.
But I do think down the road, when it comes to investment advice is always, one go-to there. How to maybe alter some of the education materials in a different manner for a different group of employees, because you have a diverse workforce. You need to figure out how to meet your employee where they're at. And so you need to alter the education materials. You can probably use AI, to do that. Plan administration. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting new products coming out online soon that will help you administer your plan a lot more effectively by using or tapping into AI technology as well. So we're really at the early stages here, and so I'm pretty excited just about how we will be able to use it as long as you and I still have a job.
Exactly, and Pacific Life is not currently utilizing AI to build any products or solutions. However, the ability to be familiar and to have awareness of these various platforms, right? Because AI is not just a thing; it is something that permeates currently into many, many different facets of technology. And personally, I do believe that it will be something that in even 5 to 10 years, we won't say, "Oh, that's AI." It's just going to be integrated in everything we do. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, it already is. Whether you're using some of these bots like Grammarly or some of these other things that are kind of looking through the text that you write, perhaps, or if it is actually ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot, whatever it may be that you're utilizing. But I had a conversation with somebody not that long ago. If you look back to the late '90s, when folks really started to become more familiar with the internet, and in the early 2000s, when Google became a bit of a mainstay, you had a lot of folks that were still, oh my goodness, why would I ever want to go onto that box, the computer, and type something in when I have this amazing Yellow Pages here, when I can just page through and quickly find somebody in my area that is going to come and fix my plumbing problem, or will come and help me with some issues around the house, or provide some sort of service. It's my area. Why would I want to get rid of this Yellow Page? Go onto a computer and type it in there? That's crazy. And all of a sudden, yes, we don't have the yellow pages or white pages at your doorstep, but what we do have is a multi-billion-dollar ad industry, right? That then is still very vibrant and growing with ad buys and ads, AdWords, and et cetera, all over, whether it's Google or other platforms. So even though the white pages and yellow pages are no more, we now have a massive ad industry, right? Whether it's online ads or any sort of digital ad that is no more in the printed form, but definitely in a digital form, be it our devices or desktops, et cetera. And so I believe that AI will be, along those lines, it will be integrated into what we do and help us in so many ways that we just can't even fathom at the moment.
It will. And it's funny you mentioned that example. During COVID, I lived in a rural area for a little bit, and I did use the yellow pages for a plumbing issue. And that was more effective than actually searching online. And that was only a few years ago. So, to that
Where were you able to find a yellow pages?
I had it. It had it. But to that end, though, I think that's a prime example of we're still at the early stages.
Exactly.
So we do need to, again, not only we talk about meeting the employee where they're at from a retirement perspective, but also from a technology perspective too. And not everyone is going to be comfortable using AI or tech to assist them, with their retirement plan. But it's coming, I think we just have to embrace it.
We do, and the governance is extremely important, and ways in which we can be effective with these AI tools. But it is coming, and it will be something I think that is going to continue to revolutionize the way we live our lives and the way we maybe look at our future selves.
I agree. And you mentioned governance too, as an example. It is something that we also have to look at it from a regulatory or from a legislative angle too, as AI is pushed out there, back in Washington, D.C. There is going to be some, further, reviews of, how do we need to put some guardrails on AI. And I think that's something that we also need to keep in mind down the road, and maybe that will circle back to retirement as well. We're already working on a Secure 3.0 package. So we had 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 will be next. So who knows what will be included in that, but there might be some technology aspects in that next piece of legislation.
We talk about, the technology and, looking at data analytics and using those analytics to create a more personalized approach for folks as they're in their retirement journey. What are your thoughts about using data to create that personalization?
Oh, I love it. You got to use it. Data or data, whatever you use or however you say it. I constantly am asking, the plan sponsors that I work with on a daily basis, how they are utilizing data and, how can they better access it. I think, a lot of the data that used to be, we looked at was, auto enrollment, or it was, what's the participation rate? What's the average contribution rate? And people still use that. But I think now HR professionals are recognizing that, all right, let's dig in a little bit deeper. If I want to, participation rate's great, but if I want to increase it a little bit more, how do I do that effectively? So digging into the data to see, is there a specific cohort of employees that are just not contributing? And can I angle my communications, my education towards that cohort of employees, because they all kind of fall into a certain bucket, whether it's a somehow socioeconomic bucket of sorts, to encourage them to participate. That's the type of data that I think our plan sponsors, our HR professionals are more interested in, is getting that more granular look at how their plan is running and how they can make it run even better.
Mm-hmm. Looking ahead as we wrap up the episode here, Will, looking at that regulatory landscape, you mentioned potential rumblings of a Secure Act 3.0. Is there anything on deck that you can share or any wisdom perhaps that you can provide as it pertains to the future of that regulatory landscape?
Yeah, I'm already excited for Secure 3.0. I think, again, it goes back to the mission of the American Retirement Association. How do we ensure that more Americans have access to a retirement plan? So what I would see in a Secure 3.0 is continuing on what Secure 2.0 was doing, is that ensuring that there are more small businesses in particular have the tools to offer a retirement plan to their employees. And then from there, ensuring that more Americans, even if they do have something at work, they are participating. So more ways to encourage people, to participate. That will be the theme, I think, of Secure 3.0.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Will. And to our audience, if you're interested to learn more about these conversations with Will, head over to YouTube, Spotify, and Audible and search the Wave Strength. Hit like and subscribe so you can be current with new content as it becomes available. Once again, thanks for joining us and have a great day, everyone.
This has been another episode of The Wave Strength, presented by Pacific Life. Don't forget to catch us on YouTube and make sure to subscribe. Although this podcast is presented by Pacific Life, the opinions and views expressed are those of the hosts and participants and do not necessarily reflect Pacific Life's views on any of the topics discussed. Unless otherwise noted, Pacific Life is unaffiliated with any other individual or company mentioned. Pacific Life is a product provider. It is not a fiduciary and therefore does not give advice or make recommendations regarding insurance or investment products. Pacific Life, its affiliates, its distributors, and respective representatives do not provide any employer-sponsored qualified plan administrative services or impartial advice about investments and do not act in a fiduciary capacity for any plan. Pacific Life refers to Pacific Life Insurance Company and its subsidiary, Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Insurance products can be issued in all states except New York by Pacific Life Insurance Company and in all states by Pacific Life and Annuity Company. Product availability and features may vary by state. Each insurance company is solely responsible for the financial obligations accruing under the products it issues. This podcast was recorded on August 13th, 2024.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation below and leave a comment on your thoughts on what the industry can do better for participants as it pertains to lifetime income solutions. And if you'd like more interesting content, click one of these links over here.